Family Hour, empowering families. This is a Wednesday and it is a Holy Week, so we know all our moods are tuning to Easter. But it's also important that we bring you the very best here. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Every knows Colors is my name. And today is a Wednesday. Of course, for you who always follows us, you know that every Wednesday we talk about finances. Anything to do with finances is what we talk about every Wednesday. Today we are talking about the role of tax professionals in tax compliance. Of course, today we want to understand who a tax professional is. Someone can have a good mastery of taxes and then probably they call themselves tax professionals. But by the end of this show, we shall be able to know what role these professionals really have to play when it comes to tax compliance, because we've talked about compliance and we've looked at the role of different people, different stakeholders when it gets to compliance. Now today we're talking about you, the professionals, and your role. And or maybe you are a taxpayer and you really want to know the role of these professionals. It's what we are discussing today. And with us is, of course, Dedan, and he's again with us. We are grateful to have you once again.
Thank you.
In this Holy Week.
Thank you.
Yeah. And kindly greet our viewers.
Yeah, good evening, our viewers. Nice to have you again.
Nice to have you too. And like we've already said, we cannot stop thanking you for really dedicating this time to educate our viewers out there. And yeah, I believe people are really learning a lot out of this. Out of these discussions that we've held for quite some time. But today we want to look at the role of tax professionals. And maybe just to start with, who should we call a tax professional?
Yeah, that's a good one. And why this topic is necessary for our people out there.
Yes.
Is that there are so many people out in the market trying to do tax matters, trying to handle tax matters.
Yes.
But what I can say is that not all of them, not all of us out there are actually tax professionals or tax experts for that matter. Currently, URA licenses tax agents or people that URA has vetted, and actually URA feels that they are fit to give tax advisory services to the taxpayers. Now, there is a special committee of URA. It is called TAC, Tax Agents Registration Committee. This committee is responsible for vetting and licensing tax agents, so tax professionals, and every license is actually valid for 1 year. So when we talk about tax professionals, it is not about just telling someone that you can file returns. That's not the point. Because the role of tax professionals goes far, far, far beyond returns. Actually, quite often, people have tried to minimize the role of tax professionals. When you say, I'm a tax expert, I'm a tax advisor, someone says, hey, you can file my returns. And that's why we come this evening to actually substantiate and educate our people. What is the role of a tax expert, a tax advisor? But also, who is this person called a tax advisor? I must say that people who, for example, have done CPA as a course, certified chartered accountant, it's not that they're actually tax experts. They have done some papers of tax, but to be a tax expert, these are people, one, they have been trained, they have studied taxation, but also have dedicated their time to research, to practice, and appreciate the tax laws and registrations. So it is not just about the qualification. We have those who are CPAs, they can hardly advise on tax matters. So what I want us to put clear is that a tax expert or a tax professional is someone who has studied taxation and can easily appreciate tax laws, has researched, but also is in practice. And on top of all, has been licensed by URA to practice taxation.
Okay.
Because that committee was put so that the public can actually know who is this person accredited, licensed to give tax advisory to taxpayers. Not all of us. There are many people you meet, they say, I'm a tax advisor, I'm a tax... But then the question is, what shows that you are a tax advisor? Now, today I must also say that if there is someone out there who is in need of a tax advisor, normally URA, after licensing tax experts, the experts are put on the URA portal. If I say I come from Demo Consult, if you put my name, the company name,
Demo
or
Consult,
the firm's name, Demo Consult, then it should come. URA has that where it has a provision where you can check for tax agents. So if you open that link, then it will tell you to put, say, a name or a TIN. If you wrote a name in that provision, then it should show that Demo Consult is actually licensed. Now, when you are dealing with a licensed company,
yes,
a licensed firm, it gives you the confidence. Because you know, URA has scrutinized, it has vetted, so they are sure that actually this company with its people are firm. They know what they are doing. So let them go out and help our people. But also to say that tax professionals are a bridge between the taxpayers and the revenue authority. That they make a very big contribution when it comes to revenue mobilization and collection.
Yes.
Because we are the people. Every now and then we are educating our taxpayers. Here, this is your obligation.
And
you
advising
need to
them.
honor your obligation. You need to file on time. You need to pay your taxes. But also, when you look at whatever we have been discussing, I don't think we have had an evening when we have come and we don't talk about laws.
Yeah, there is no even.
Yes. So, when you look at taxation the way it is a mixture of laws and accounting. So, legal and accounting, when you combine the two, you get taxation.
Yes.
That the legislators sit in parliament and make these laws. These laws, finally, they are interpreted and put into figures. Now, the moment you cross into figures, that is how accounting comes in. That taxation is one arm of accounting.
Yes.
Yes. Taxation is one arm of accounting. So, you cannot talk about taxation and you forget about accounting.
True.
Ideally, it is accounting first. I remember when we were talking about bookkeeping, I say that you cannot manage taxation when your bookkeeping is in a mess.
Yes.
Bookkeeping is a form of accounting. It is part of accounting. It is one arm of accounting. So I'm saying that there is no way we can discuss taxation and we don't discuss accounting. There is no way we can discuss taxation and we don't look at legal issues. So how does now a tax expert, a tax agent, a tax professional come in to help out?
Yes, yes.
You realize that URA uses the taxation laws and regulations to actually assess, administer, and collect taxes. Tax agent uses the same laws to represent, defend, to educate, so that the taxpayer is in the know of what needs to be done at what point. But also, you realize that the legal knowledge, the legal language, plus the accounting language, they are not easy for us all to understand. So a tax practitioner, a tax professional comes in to to interpret and make these things understandable to the lay people, to the taxpayers, so that as URA is talking about an assessment, for you meet the taxpayer and say an assessment is because it is something that URA has raised because you have failed on your obligation. It comes in because you have failed. You get the point?
Yes.
When we talk of a return, I have said here before that a return, you are looking at a formal communication between the taxpayer and URA actually, and the government through URA. So what are we saying here? That if you are talking to a taxpayer and you say you have not filed your returns, is that enough? Does the taxpayer understand what a return is, what to file is, you know? So as tax people, tax practitioners, we come in and try to make this language simpler for our taxpayers to understand. That is one. Two, we have a role of representation, which is very, very, very key. That the moment a taxpayer is dissatisfied, wants to go to URA to present his dissatisfaction, we come in and do it on behalf of taxpayers. Because the taxpayer is not conversant with the legal language, with the accounting language. Now, it is the role of a tax practitioner to go through the figures, that's the accounting bit, but also to look at the legal provisions, so that by the time I go to URA to represent Mukaras, I have the facts. I say, in a year, this man made only 10 million. Why are you assessing him 100 million? I'm someone who understands the accounting part,
yes, the
legal part. So by the time I'm talking to a URA officer, I talk with confidence because I know what I'm talking about. Whichever question that this person raises, I will answer confidently because I know the language, I know the role he's using. I'm also using the same role to actually represent the taxpayer. That's another role. Now, the common one that people are used to is filing returns. That returns is part of the compliance journey that we have always discussed here. That every taxpayer must communicate the affairs of his business. Now, you can only communicate the affairs of your business accurately through a return. Now, when you look at the way URA operates today, that almost all of these services are online. They are online based. So when we talk about returns, it's not all of us that we shall be able to file, because a return involves accounting. Accounting is not for everyone. A return involves now the legal provisions. Because by the time you put in a figure, there is what guides you to put this figure where you are putting it. So what am I saying? That now we come in as tax people, tax professionals, tax experts, to arrange these things so that we file things that are accurate, so that a taxpayer pays what we call a fair tax. Now, quite often, I've seen situations where people have tried to dodge using tax professionals. But at the end of it all, they try to file for themselves. The return will go. But along the way, URA does what we call return verification. At a point of doing return verification, URA will find gaps, things that we are not done properly. When these things are found, URA has a number of options. One, they can call you as a taxpayer to explain. That's one. Two, they can actually raise an assessment there and then. They look at things that are not right, they disallow them by raising an assessment. If they do that, of course, it becomes a liability on the side of the taxpayer. But even then, when possibly URA has raised an assessment, we look at, as tax professionals, we say, this is the situation. Our taxpayer has an assessment. What are the remedies available? What are the interventions that we can do to help this taxpayer? One, the question is, do you agree with the assessment? If the answer is no, then you have options available. One, that you can go through what we called an objection process. We discussed about this some time ago. an objection, now this is also done online. Now the fact that it is done online, it means it is not something that every other person can actually handle.
Yes.
But also, as you do the objection, you are telling URA that you people, what you did is not right. So me, I'm giving you the right position. What am I saying? That lodging in an objection, it goes with your actual return. Now, the moment you talk about the right or accurate return, it means it should be done again by a person who understands these things, so that you give URA the situation as is. When they call you to defend what you submitted, then you need this person who understands what was put where and why it was put there, so that URA is satisfied. Once URA is satisfied, they will just remove the assessment. You get the point?
Yes.
Now, but also there are situations that URA, according to their interpretation, they are not agreeing with you.
Yeah.
As long as you, as a tax practitioner, you feel a taxpayer has clear grounds, firm grounds, then there are other steps. You can go to tax appeals tribunal, and if you go to tax appeals tribunal, again, this is where lawyers sit. It is a court under the Ministry of Finance to handle these disagreements between URA and the taxpayer. Of course, these things are technical, that not every other businessman will go there to represent himself to urge out these matters. So it is now tax practitioners, both accountants and lawyers. This is their part to go and actually represent and urge out. We have seen several cases that URA disagrees, but when you reach in for example, tax appeals tribunal, you win the case. We have also seen cases that you can go up to the Supreme Court trying to defend your taxpayer, and you finally win the case when you are at the Supreme Court. So what am I saying? That right away from filing returns up to Supreme Court, when you are trying to defend a taxpayer, all these are roles of a tax advisor. It can be a tax lawyer or a tax accountant. Now, when you look at the two, that a tax accountant does well on matters of numbers. When you are still at filing, when you are still at objections, those areas, because these are more of numbers. So a tax accountant will actually do very well there, possibly up to that. But beyond that, from that onwards, these are legal issues. That now you realize that even when you had a tax accountant, the tax accountant will co-opt a tax lawyer, because now it has gone beyond the figures. It is more of a legal interpretation. You get the point?
Yes.
So, as tax professionals, we work together out there if we are really to bring out the best.
So does it mean that, so for example, a tax advisory firm should have both a tax lawyer and a tax advisor?
Ideally.
Okay.
If they are to manage well. Now, we have seen the situation is now changing. Previously, lawyers, just out of LDC, because they do some paper and taxation, so they would come out, they want to be in the market as tax advisors. But today, the situation is becoming hard. That what they do at LDC is just a paper, 102. That cannot give you, that cannot give you a firm foundation for you to practice tax. That yes, you can read the law, but when you get into the details of numbers, you actually struggle.
So can at that very point, can URA still accredit a tax lawyer as a tax agent?
Yes. Why they do it is that tax matters they start from those figures I have talked about, but they also go into litigation. Now, what happens is that you can be a tax agent for a client, possibly in filing. Then they say, if we have representation, we have a tax lawyer. So even lawyers who qualify, they can be accredited. And they become also tax agents or tax advisors. Yes.
Okay. we were still,
Yes,
you're still explaining, and then I cut you short.
The other important point.
Yes.
Why we need tax professionals, or
Yes.
why we need actually to embrace.
Actually, I think the thing was why we need both tax lawyers and the tax agents in one firm. Yeah.
Yes. I was saying that when you look at taxation, it is a combination of law and accounting. That's why I'm talking about tax accountants and tax lawyers. That when issues involve numbers, you want to report to have numbers organized and presented to URA.
Yes.
That is something that is handled by tax accountants. But when you go, for example, 30 onwards, issues of court, they involve legal interpretation. Realize that an accountant, a tax accountant, cannot do well in that other direction. But it would also be wrong for a lawyer to say he will handle returns, he will handle objections where there are issues of figures. Apart from, today we have lawyers who have done accounting. We also have accountants who have done law. So it means that person is privileged to have knowledge from the accounting perspective, but also from the legal perspective. Now, that person can actually advise squarely that he can handle from the figure perspective, but also goes on up to, let's say, Supreme Court if there is a need. Yes. Some other important thing that I was about to say is that here in our economy, we have not appreciated well the role of professionals and specifically tax advisors. That's why I say that some people minimize tax advisors to filing returns. But me, I'm saying that can never be the case. Now, because we want to do these things ourselves, along the way, we are called in shit, if I may say. When things go bad, it's now when we think, who can help me? Who can help me? So quite often, we are called in to do post-mortem, which is it is costly, it is costly, but it's also unfortunate that you do things in a wrong way, you mess up things. Everything is in a mess for 3-5 years. Because URA is now squeezing you with audits, you feel I need someone to help me. That is very unfortunate. That where things would have put in order, and you be at peace with URA and you minimize these costs for you, you want to cut costs. Either you are employing the people I talked about, those who are moving around that they can do. Normally the difference lies here. That the person who does not have an office, the person who is possibly not licensed by URA is just moving around. A service that he would have charged 500, he would say, give me 100. Because taxpayers want to save. They are comfortable at the start dealing with the people who are charging.
We shall actually automatically know that you're overcharging us.
Exactly. But now what looks as overcharging in the short run, in the long run, you realize that the person who seemed to be charging a raw figure one, the moment you get issues, you never look for this person and get him. Because you cannot trace them, they don't have any office. Two, they don't have the confidence because they know they are not licensed by URA. They don't have the confidence to interface with URA and urge out these matters. You get the point? So, the biggest or the core role of tax professionals is what we call tax planning.
Tax planning.
Now, when you look at tax planning, it is a good topic in taxation. Here you are looking at organizing, arranging one's tax affairs so that you pay the exact tax or you manage or minimize, if I can put it, the tax liability.
Okay.
Start by putting your house in order.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying organizing, arranging your business transactions. So that by the time the taxman is coming in to say you are meant to pay this or that, you are actually clean. You have planned ahead of the game. Now, that way you will avoid costs of post-mortem. Very important that when we talk about tax advisory, it is not just advisory because you are in problems. And that's where we lose the whole point. After URA has started squeezing you here and there, you think of no, Ugandans can help me. That is post-mortem that I talked about. The ideal position, which I am appealing to all people in business, is that do tax planning. How do you do tax planning? Get a tax practitioner, get a tax expert, sit together and look at the affairs of your business in advance. We have seen, at least for foreigners, they do this, that as they come, when they want to invest, they will first get a tax expert to give a tax advisory. You want to establish maybe a manufacturing plant. Can you first know the tax implication in that sector? Now,
before you go for it.
Yes, foreigners who are coming here, some of these, they do this. It is part of their research. But for us, the locals or the Ugandans, we don't want to incur these costs. We just, because we feel we have capital, we don't plan for tax, yet tax, as I said.
And we feel, sometimes we feel we are familiar with most of these things.
Yes, and I said last time that tax is the biggest cost in a business. So if it is the biggest cost, why should you feel comfortable going and borrowing to get capital, but you don't plan something that will actually take this money out of your business?
Sure.
That is why tax planning is so important, that we must engage tax advisors, tax practitioners to give us an advisory in advance before actually starting to invest. That is very, very, very key.
There is something you talked about that most of the Ugandans have looked at tax advisors only at a point of filing returns. But when you come back from the break, there should be someone who asks, okay, what other, besides tax planning, what other services should I expect from a tax professional and a tax advisor? And what else do they put on table besides this that we are pinning them for? We're taking a short commercial break, but we shall be back.